This is a special report from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage in the trial of Scot Peterson, the Parkland School resource officer. Let's go to the courtroom for segment number 3 of today.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. When we took our lunch break, we had just concluded with the direct examination of the witness. The witness remains on the witness stand under oath. We'll now pick it up with the cross-examination of the witness. Mr. Agash, when you are ready, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Captain.
Good afternoon.
Wonderful to see you again.
Thank you.
We met back on June 27, 2022, when I had the privilege of questioning you at our deposition, correct?
Yes, through Zoom, right?
We were through Zoom, correct. And you've had a chance to refresh your recollection by reading through the deposition, correct?
Yes, I have.
And you've spoken with the prosecutors in preparation for your testimony, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If I understood your testimony correctly, you are a captain with Coral Springs Police Department, correct?
That is correct.
And you served amongst many places as one of the leaders in the SWAT unit?
No, the crisis negotiation team, the hostage negotiators.
Got it. I think I combined that. You were on the SWAT team, correct?
Yeah, we're a part of the SWAT team, yes.
Got it. And now, prior to arriving to the scene of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, you would have then been monitoring your police radio, correct?
Yes, correct.
And you remember doing that, correct?
Yes.
Your police radio is different than BSO's police radio, correct?
Yes.
You were aware at the time, and you're aware now, that those radios are separate, correct?
I'm aware now, yeah.
Okay. Did you not know at the time that when you spoke into your police radio that BSO deputies couldn't hear what you had to say?
I didn't know at the time, no.
You didn't? Okay. And did you also then not know that whatever dispatch was saying to you could not be heard by BSO deputies? Did you know that?
Not at the time. I had assumed that we were patched.
Okay. Well, that's important, right? You later learned that that wasn't the case, that the radios were not patched, correct?
Correct.
So that meant whatever you knew, you assumed was known by my client and other BSO deputies, correct?
Yes.
And certainly no one in real time while you're on the scene ever told you, hey, BSO is not patched with Coral Springs, correct?
No, I think when I got to the 1200 building in that stairway, that's when I kind of figured it out.
Okay, but that was way after the shooting had stopped,
Yes.
correct? Yes?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
All right. So if you were monitoring your radio on the way to the high school, you then knew that there was an active shooter as you were coming to the school, correct?
Yes, like I testified earlier, I was on 2 channel. When I started heading towards Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I was more worried with getting there as quickly as possible, so I failed to switch over back to our main channel. So I lost a lot of some of the dispatches that were brought across the air.
Okay, so let me just find out what you remember hearing. Did you know that the lines were blowing up, that people were calling into Coral Springs Police Department?
No, it didn't come over 2 channel, I don't believe.
Did you know that all the cellular calls being made by frightened children inside the 1200 building were going to Coral Springs and not BSO?
I learned that later on after the fact.
Did you know that Burton had made an announcement that we're looking for a white male? Did you know that?
I remember hearing a description of an individual given over the air. I didn't know if it was Tim Burton or not.
Okay. And the description that you knew when you arrived on the scene, or prior to arriving on the scene, was you're looking for a white male in an ROTC uniform, correct?
It was a white male, red shirt, black pants. That's what I recall.
Got it. And also, Burton had announced over the Coral Springs radio that you thought was patched with BSO that the shooter was last seen in the 3-story building north parking lot. Do you remember him announcing that?
I remember the 3-story building. I don't recall him saying the north parking lot if it was him.
Okay. Did you also know that there were 3 victims down in room 1216 in the freshman building? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So is it possible then that they said that, but you either have divided attention, right?
It's possible. Like I said, I was on a different channel. I did switch over, I think, when I got to Westview and Coral Springs Drive, which is Pine Island. But I may have missed those in the midterm. Also, my focus was traveling at the rate of speed that I was traveling, was trying not to get in an accident on the way there.
Of course. Of course. So it would be unfair to say, well, because it was said on the Coral Springs radio, you must have heard it. That would be unfair to say, right?
For me, must to have heard it, I would have to say yes, that's fair.
Okay. Do you recall ever learning that in real time at 2:39, and this would have been 2 minutes before your arrival, hey, we need to get these radios patched?
Objection, counsel testifying as to the time you arrived.
Yeah, that's the thing. Go ahead, Mr. Igosh.
You did testify on direct that at 2:41, that's when you were running down the breezeway?
I don't remember saying an exact time, no.
Okay, I probably got it from the video.
Okay.
Did you watch the video? When they were playing the video of you guys?
Yeah, there's like a
going down?
timestamp, right?
Yeah, did you remember what the timestamp said on top?
Not off the top of my mind, no. I'd have to see it.
Can we run that? Okay, so I'll move on, but I do want that played. So if we can get that.
Do you want to grab it and hand it?
Yeah, absolutely. Does the clerk know which one it is? I'm not sure which one it is.
Matt, Ms. Wilcox is not going to know what item of
Whatever
evidence
you
is
want.
played.
I'm not sure what you want.
She's got all the evidence.
It's the video of them running down the breezeway. This witness that was played on direct. State six. Is it one of these? Do I just search?
In the envelope.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, can I bring that to you?
Yeah.
And you'll record? All right, we'll get it.
Okay.
The time will be on top,
Right.
right? Okay, because you don't know what it is offhand.
No, not off the top of my head.
You do know that the last shots were fired some 14 minutes before you even got there, correct?
I didn't know that at the time, no.
But you had a sense, did you not, of the shots having been fired?
Yeah, there was no shots that I heard when I was on scene, so I assumed that they had come prior to my arrival.
Got it. So even though there had been a description of a white male wearing a, I think you said red shirt, could they have said burgundy shirt, or was it?
It's a possibility.
Okay, and black pants. You didn't ever think for a second, okay, so we're dealing with just one shooter on this campus, correct?
No, typically we use the +1 rule.
Explain for the jurors who may not have heard, but what is the +1 rule?
Typically when going into a incident like this, we like to believe that there's always potential likelihood of another individual or suspect. That way we keep alert and we stay aware even if we've detained somebody, because we don't want to be caught with our back to someone that may have a potential weapon.
So even when you have, hypothetically, real-time intelligence, I think there may be a shooter in that building, you're still thinking, hey, there could be multiple shooters as well, correct?
Yes, at least one more.
Okay. And if you think there might be 2 or 3, then you add 1 to that, correct?
Yes, you could.
And when you're arriving on the scene, no one had told you it's limited to just 1, correct?
No, when I got to the scene, like I said, I met up with a group of officers that were there. We kind of compared information at that point,
Right.
but as far as we knew, there was 1.
Got it. So you parked on the southeast side of the school, correct?
Correct.
And then you saw some police officers from Coral Springs, correct?
Yes.
And you joined Coral Springs police officers to get into the school, is that correct?
Yes.
And the additional officers that you joined included Detective Schroy, correct?
Yes.
Officer Dejnak, whose name I'm sure I'm not pronouncing properly. How do you say it?
I say it Danak, but I'm sure I'm wrong too.
Okay. And Detective Danielle Crawford, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so do you all then immediately join forces when you get on campus and storm into the 1200 building?
Well, at that point, we had to be let in by, who was, I later found out was Lieutenant DeVita. He let us in. He joined our group. Since there was no active stimulus for us to engage, we went to where we believed that everybody was going, and we were kind of led in that direction to the north side. We ended up getting flagged down, or we believed we were going to start clearing buildings, but we got flagged down by a school administrator or a teacher at the drama center, and that's when we went into that building.
So let's start the process of clearing buildings, right? The idea is because you don't know where the shooter or shooters may be located, they could be located anywhere, correct?
At that point, we didn't have enough intelligence to say that the shooter was still at the 1200 building.
So every single building could be a possibility, correct?
At that stage, yes.
Okay, we'll move forward, right? And the situation is fluid.
Correct.
Meaning it changes when you get additional real-time intelligence, correct?
Yes.
So let's start with where you're at. You get there, and every possible building and every corner and every car in a parking lot could possibly...
Well, in that particular instance, when we got to the gate and I saw the deputy come from the one building, I assumed at that point that building was good because he was coming out of it, and we knew the direction that we needed to go was north, so I wasn't so much concerned with what was south or west of us.
Got it. But you do start searching, and you went into, I think it was the band room, was it?
It was like a theater or drama area. It could have been a band room. I'm not
Okay.
too familiar with that.
And you went in there not by yourself, but with a team of officers, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because as you're opening up any particular door, there could be a shooter to your left, correct?
Yes.
There could be a shooter to your right, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, sir. I'm
Sorry, it's the old...
I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. And there could be shooters in multiple blind spots at different locations, correct?
Yes. Typically, when you enter a large room, it's better to have more people.
I mean, you never train, hey, if you have the option, just go with a single man entry. That's not trained, correct?
It is an active shooter scenario, yes.
I got you. But typically, that's not your choice because you're more vulnerable that way, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you then move towards closer to the 1200 building, correct?
Yes.
And my client was not the only officer there, correct?
No, when I got closer, I could see some individuals off to the right. I don't know if they were police officers or school security, but there were some individuals off to the right.
Well, do you remember seeing Coral Springs Officer Best, who was standing right by my client's side?
I don't recall seeing him, no.
Okay. You're not saying that he wasn't there. You're saying you just don't recall seeing him, correct?
Correct.
And what about Officer Burton, who would have been in the parking lot about 40 yards away?
I don't remember seeing him, no.
Okay. That doesn't mean he wasn't there, correct?
Correct.
In fact, this was a very stressful scene, correct?
Yes.
You never thought you'd be sitting in a witness chair having to recount, let's see, who was present during the shooting, correct?
It did come to my attention afterwards, yes. But during the scene, I was more focused on solving the problem.
Got it. So the first thing that you do when you get to the area near my client is you take a tactical position of cover. Do you not?
Yeah, well, I initially made contact with him, and then I went off to my left. There was a concrete pillar.
Okay. I just want to now discuss, we'll get to the concrete pillar.
Okay.
Let's see if we have it queued up. Great. I just want to know, again, what everything, you agree that times are very relevant.
Mr. Savitsky, everyone can see this, correct?
Yes, Judge.
Times are very relevant in a scenario like this, right?
Well, the time is a factor, yes.
Okay. Are you a detail guy?
What do you mean, like go by details?
Yeah.
I try to.
Okay. So let's get the details. I'm gonna have you look at the video again and tell us the time approximately when you approach my client.
So right around here is where I can see.
Pause it for a second. Pause it, please.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you see?
Peterson would be directly in front of me at the bottom of the screen. He's out of the camera view.
Okay. So look at the top right. You see the number 9 there? Do you see 9
It's
on the pillar? Here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Would he be, in relation to that, where did you see Peterson?
Just out in front of it. Like I said, he's off camera.
Okay. And you guys are approaching where Peterson is, correct?
Correct.
And so does that 241, 242-ish represent the approximate time?
Yes, sir.
Can I just say ish because I see 241.54. So
Right, so we're coming up on 242.
Would that be a fair estimate? I'll use your words.
Yes, 242 is probably when I make
Okay,
contact.
that's good. I'm all set. So 242, if the last shot happened at 227.35, you're talking about some
Objection, counsel testifying.
Yeah, that's sustained.
Are you good at math?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If the last shot...
Objection, counsel testifying.
Yeah, that's sustained.
Okay. So at 242, you approach my client, and you said that when you mentioned there was a pillar there.
Yeah, it was like concrete wall pillar, yeah.
Okay. And what did you do at that concrete wall?
I took a position behind it while I was communicating with him.
Now, why did you do that?
Obviously, if there's any type of shooting scenario, it's always best to find hard cover as opposed to what we call concealment. The difference being is hard cover can stop a projectile, bullet, or something from hurting you, where concealment can just mask where you were at, but projectiles can still come through it.
If you believed that all the shots were contained within the 1200 building, you wouldn't have had a need to take a position of cover and find a concrete pillar, correct?
Since I didn't know where the shooter was, I wasn't aware of where the shots may come from, so that's why I took my position.
And so one of the scenarios as you get to the scene is you could possibly be subjected to sniper fire at any point, correct?
Yes, I'm not really sure about sniper, but I thought I could potentially be shot at.
Well, yeah, until you eliminate that as a possibility, it has to be plausibly on your list, correct?
Okay. I wasn't thinking that day, no, but...
Okay. But just months before that was the Las Vegas shooting, correct?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure on the date of that, but
Okay.
I am aware of the incident.
And that involved a sniper, correct?
Yes, it did.
Objection relevance.
Yeah, that's sustained. Go ahead, sir.
Another possibility, though, I think you said more plausibly, was that there was shooter or shooters wandering around that area that had guns, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were worried at any point you could be shot, correct?
Yeah, it didn't enter my mind.
If I can have you take a look at what is Defense Exhibit F. Can you point to the areas that you thought were in play? In other words, did you eliminate that there could potentially be shooters some way west by the football field?
At the point where I made contact with Deputy Peterson?
Yes.
No, when we got up to Deputy Peterson, we had basically ascertained that the shooter was more than likely in that area of the 1200 building.
Okay. So did you believe that there was a possibility that the shooter could be between the 12 and 1300 building?
Not at that point, no.
What did you learn in real time that eliminated that as a possibility at 2:42?
When we arrived up with Deputy Peterson, we could see officers moving back and forth from the 1200 building. I could see people on the west side of that building.
Okay. So at that point, the fact that you saw people on the west side helped narrow down your focus, correct?
Correct.
The absence of people on the west side, again, would have made your scope a lot larger, correct?
It could have, but with the amount of resources that we had to the 1200 building and based on what Deputy Peterson had advised me, I believe that was our area of concern.
I got you. And did you know whether there were any shooter or shooters located in the parking lot areas?
No,
Was that also a possibility in light of what Burton had announced?
I didn't hear what Burton announced.
Okay. Did you also consider that there could be potential shooters in the surrounding parking areas?
Objection asked and answered.
That's overruled. Go ahead, sir. You can answer that question.
I didn't think so because, again, I saw a large number of personnel in that area, so I
Okay.
didn't think it would be a problem.
Again, because the situation is fluid, again, you're
Yes.
talking about 242, correct?
Right around there, yep.
Okay. When you initially approach my client, you see him with his gun out, correct?
Yes,
And you see him talking on his school radio, correct?
I believe so, yes.
You remember specifically that it was his school radio that you saw him talking on as opposed to his police radio, correct?
Well, I don't want to say it was definitely a thing. He was talking into a radio. It appeared to be a school radio.
Fair enough. Did you know who he was speaking to at that time?
I do not.
Did you know how long he had been speaking to that person prior to you arriving?
I do not.
Do you know what information he obtained prior to you arriving from speaking with someone on his school radio?
No.
How would you characterize my client's demeanor as you approach him?
Frustrated, obviously in stress. We all were.
You all were stressed,
Yeah.
correct? His demeanor was no different than yours, correct?
It didn't appear to be, no.
And or matched the other people on the scene, correct?
With the group that I was with, I thought so.
Without question, unlike this courtroom, that scene was extremely stressful, was it not?
Yes.
Now, after arriving by the 700 building near my client, you couldn't see any gunshot victims at all from where you were standing, correct?
No, not at the time. I was talking with Deputy Peterson. I could see movement, but I wasn't like looking right then and there. I did see them later on.
Okay. But again, from where you're standing and you're just looking, you don't see Aaron Feist's body on the west side,
No.
correct?
No.
You don't see any other indicators that would suggest that anybody's injured at that point, correct?
I could see people being carried out. I would assume that they were injured, but I didn't see any direct injuries.
If you looked in through the window, did you look into the windows of the 1200 building?
When we went up to the second floor, yes.
Okay, but did you ever look while you were standing there next to my client?
I don't recall, no.
Is it a fact that you never shared any of your real-time intelligence with my client at all while on the scene?
No, I felt that if I had the information, he would have had the information, so I didn't feel it pertinent.
Okay. You're familiar with auditory exclusions, correct?
Yes.
Explain for the jurors what auditory exclusions are.
Sometimes when dealing with a stressful situation, you sometimes block out certain noises or sounds or conversations in order, because your focus is set. So you're kind of blocking out. Like my wife was talking to me the other day as I was reading over my depositions, and I didn't hear what she said, and I had to turn to her and say, "What did you say?" Something like that.
Does that mean I can tell my wife I have auditory exclusion?
Yeah, that's his thing. Go ahead, sir. Ask your next question.
What about visual exclusions?
It does happen, yes.
What's that?
Yes, it does happen.
Explain, it happens under stressful or calm situations?
Mostly under stress.
Okay. Similar to a scenario like you experienced?
I don't recall having any visual exclusions. I have had them in the past in different incidents.
Explain for the jurors, when you do have visual exclusions, what occurs?
Your focus is narrowed, so you may lose your peripheral. So it just comes with the territory of trying to focus in on what you're dealing with.
Some of the benefits sometimes could be that you're laser focused on what's in front of you, correct?
Yes, sir.
But then you don't necessarily see what's in your periphery, correct?
Yes.
So it's possible to miss things in your periphery, but it be unintentional, correct?
That is correct.
And when asked about it later, it could be because of visual exclusion, correct?
It is a possibility.
So you've been trained in active shooting, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when your officers are trained, do you go to a particular location?
We've varied the location over the years. Sometimes it's at a school, sometimes it's at our training facility.
What is the largest area that you use to do active training?
We used a middle school within the city of Coral Springs. I can't recall which year. I believe it was Forest Glen Middle.
And was the whole middle school in play?
Basically, yes.
Did there ever come a time where this training, and again, this is Coral Springs, and I know it's not BSO, but I'm just curious what Coral Springs does. Was there ever a scenario where they said, okay, we're going to make a noise from somewhere, have it echo, and have you guys guess where it's coming from? Did that ever happen?
Yes. With the training that I just mentioned, the Forest Glen Middle, there were shots fired from within the school. We were outside of the school and we had to determine the location.
Okay. And did you ever hear of any training ever done at Marjory Stoneman Douglas specifically?
It's outside of our jurisdiction, so I wouldn't have.
Fair enough. Now, in a scenario, we do know that if you know where the sounds are coming from and you can move towards the sounds, because you have a sense of where the sounds may be, that you move towards the sounds, right? You would agree with that? Mm-hmm. That's not in dispute. Imagine a scenario where you don't know whether to move left, right, straight, behind you, okay?
Okay.
Because there's such a pronounced echo that you do not know which way to go, okay?
Okay.
Doesn't happen that often, correct?
No, I've never had experience with it, no.
Got it. But in that type of scenario, assuming that the shots could be in a perimeter that would extend from the 1200 building all the way out to include the football field, which would be hundreds of yards in the westerly direction. Are you with me so far?
Okay.
Okay. And assuming that it would also extend all the way out easterly to cover the east parking lot as well.
Okay.
Okay. And it would also extend north to cover the parking lot area, which is, again, the size of a football field, right? And then also extend that perimeter at least another football field in another direction, and we would call this south, correct?
Okay.
And assuming that somebody is in a position of cover near you, over here by the 7-800 building, okay? And you don't know whether it's left, right, forward, you have no idea. In that scenario, do you go to the right and guess to the right and start the parking lot, looking in the parking lot area? Do you go?
Objection, Judge Counsel.
Well, hold on, he didn't get to the end of the question yet. Go ahead, sir. Finish your question.
So that's the first question. Do you guess to just start on the right and just look through a parking lot area if you don't know where the shots are coming from?
So just
Objection, Judge.
No, it's overruled. You may answer the question, sir. Go ahead.
so that I have the scenario correct before I answer. So I'm located where Deputy Peterson was located,
That's correct.
and there's an echoing shot somewhere within that area that you just described.
That large area that I
Okay.
described, hundreds of yards in either direction, everything's at play, including sniper fire, by the way.
But there's no, what are they shooting at?
Don't know.
There's nothing being shot at?
Don't know.
Okay. I would first run to the buildings because more than likely the targets that are available there are what's going to be what they're shooting at. If there's nothing in the parking lot of the football field, I'd go there.
Okay. So let's run with that for a second.
Okay.
You're just picking, let's say we'll pick the 1300 building,
Mhm.
okay? Assume for a second it's 73 yards long,
Mhm.
right? Do you start at the top of the building?
You mean like the level wise, you mean?
Oh, I mean, do you go all the way up to the top? Because again, you don't know whether it's sniper fire from up top. You don't know if the shooter's shooting west, east, north, south. So let's start with the 1300 building. Let's say my client runs all
No,
the way.
hold on. Now I'm going to sustain the objection. Sir, you need to ask the witness a direct question.
Okay. If my client chooses the 1300 building under this scenario, should he start at the top
Sir,
or does he start
the
at
state's objection is sustained. Now you move from hypothetical to what your client should do, not what the witness should do. The state's objection is sustained. You need to ask this
a
witness.
hypothetical
Go ahead,
under
sir.
this scenario? Would a person begin on the top or at the first floor? What do you recommend?
Well, without any other stimulus or other shots being fired, I would start on the first floor, clearing it as quickly as possible, moving floor by floor until I got to the top.
Okay. You would encourage him, you didn't mention it, but you would encourage him to check his radio too to see if anybody tells him.
Sir, the objection is sustained. There is no he or him. Please ask this witness a question, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
In this hypothetical, a person who's now searching the 1300 building, you recommend that they monitor their police radio to get any additional real-time intelligence.
Well, that's what I said. If there's any other
Hold on,
stimulus.
Objection, Judge, as to relevance to this fictitious person.
Yeah, this is all sustained. Go ahead, sir. Ask your next question.
Okay. So after searching on the first floor, do you recommend someone under this
Okay,
hypothetical?
ladies and gentlemen, press pause, Mr. Agars. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have you step in the back one moment for me, please. Quick restroom break. Same admonition as always. Please do not discuss the facts of the case, the evidence, the witnesses, or the testimony amongst yourselves or anyone else until we reach the end of the case. I will tell you when that is. If you step in the back one moment for me, I'll be right back with you. Thank you. Okay, we're outside the presence of the jury. Everyone can be seated. Sir, I'm going to ask you to step out into the vestibule momentarily.
Not a problem.
Okay, I will be right back with you. Again, please don't discuss your testimony with anyone, and I will be right back with you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're outside the presence of the witness. So, Mr. Agars, I want to have this discussion outside the presence of the jury. I don't want it to impact your client's right to a fair trial in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
This witness is not an expert witness. Okay? He is not an expert witness. He's not here to give his opinion on anything. He's a fact witness. Okay? And this is going so far afield of what is proper.
Can I respond?
Go ahead, sir.
The state used Polo, Heinrich, Burton, almost every single witness to give their opinion about what my client or a person under that scenario should have done. They all said he should have moved towards the
I
scene.
don't agree with you, sir. The state asked those witnesses what they would have done. If they would have asked them to hypothetically analyze what someone else would have done and you objected, I would have sustained that too. But that's not my job to object. That's the lawyer's job.
So if
okay?
I
I rule on objections. Lawyers make objections. Okay? So at this point, again, this is a fact witness. If you would like to ask the witness what he would do, but going down this hypothetical road,
Okay.
well, let me ask you this, Mr. Igosh. Do you want me to let the state get up and redirect and ask hypothetical questions as well?
No, you
I bet you don't. Because they could start framing their hypothetical question in any manner that they see fit,
okay.
adding their editorial comments as you have been continuously doing, even though I've admonished you not to do that. So we're going to do it one of two ways. How do you want to do it, sir?
Well, I will do, obviously, I'll follow the rules of the court.
Not my rules.
No, I
It's
understand.
the rules of trial procedure.
I understand. So if you're saying that I can say, what would you do in that scenario? You're saying that I can do that.
If you want to ask this witness why he did what he did, but he never heard any shots. Let me repeat, this is not an expert witness. As far as I'm aware, there have been no expert witnesses called in this case yet. Experts are entitled to give their opinion. Fact witnesses are not.
Fair enough.
But what you have continuously been doing, and what I've admonished you previously outside of the presence of the jury and in front of the jury, is what you're doing right now. Okay, and I can't let you do that, and the state's objecting to it. No different than I could get the state stepping up and redirecting, sir. Let me ask you this hypothetically. If you had this training and you were a coward and you were afraid, and how would you best frame your response so as to not be cast in a negative light? I can't let them do that.
I understand. And
So that's what you continuously do, sir. And I've had this discussion with you repeatedly at this point.
Well, I apologize. What I believed based upon, and I will move forward, I will not do this, is because they asked their previous witnesses about what they would do, what are they trained to do. I thought essentially I'm getting that information from him.
No, why don't you ask him that? What would you do? What were you trained to do? You are labeling a hypothetical question based on a scenario that no one has testified to. I'm fairly certain no one is going to testify to it unless and until your client testifies to it. And that's not fair, sir. That's not fair.
Well, we have. I'm going to move on, Judge, but we're going to have witnesses who will testify.
Okay, well, does this witness know what your witnesses are going to say? That's why we have the rule of sequestration, sir. No witness has any idea what any other witness is going to say. This is fundamental fairness. This is basic stuff.
I'll move along, Judge.
Okay, please bring the witness back in.
Thank you.
That wraps up segment number 3 in our coverage in the trial of Scot Peterson. There is more to come. I'm Tony Bruschi. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of our coverage.
This has been a special report from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.